She wasn't smiling. That's what people noticed first. Not distress, something quieter. Catherine walked out of a closed room at Kensington Palace, holding a sheaf of papers close to her chest. Her expression still and inward, like someone who has just been handed something they've been waiting years to carry. Nobody outside that room was told what the papers contain. Palace staff were instructed not to speak to the press. But the silence itself told its own story. Because when Kensington Palace goes that quiet, it usually means something real is about to happen. Because this story is only beginning. The meeting had been months in the making. According to sources inside royal circles, Catherine had spent a long, private stretch of time going back through Diana's archives. Not the familiar press clippings, not the public record everyone already knows, but internal Foundation correspondence. Records from the 1990s, handwritten notes from campaigns that never quite reached their intended scale. Mental health advocacy, vulnerable children, communities that felt invisible to the formal machinery of British life. What she found reportedly affected her deeply, not because it was new, but because so much of it was unfinished. Diana had pushed hard to make compassion the center of royal duty at a time when the institution was actively resistant to that idea. Some of those efforts had been quietly shelved after 1997. Others had simply faded without a champion to carry them forward. Prince William was in the room for part of it. People who were nearby say his reaction was not the controlled, measured expression he usually brings to official discussions. There was something more personal in it. He has spent his entire adult life navigating the tension between protecting his mother's memory and protecting an institution that once struggled to contain her. Somehow, in that meeting, those two things finally aligned. And here is what I keep returning to when I think about this. Catherine did not invoke Diana's name to borrow her glow. She studied Diana the way you study something you want to understand on its own terms. What actually worked, what the public actually felt, what was still waiting to be done. That is a very different thing from simply using a name. The people who speak about Diana most loudly in royal circles often have the least to show for it in practice. Catherine almost never mentions her name in public, but for years now, quietly, in children's hospices, in mental health clinics, in community centers that rarely appear in royal diary highlights, she has been living what Diana was trying to build. The contrast writes itself, and it does not require anyone to be cruel to see it clearly. When the announcement came, there was no weeks-long media buildup, no orchestrated palace teasing, no carefully timed leaks. Catherine simply stepped forward and did it. The initiative placed Diana's humanitarian philosophy, specifically mental health support, youth vulnerability, compassionate leadership, not at the edge of the royal agenda, but at its center, directly tied to the future direction of the monarchy. William stood beside her the entire time. And at one point, as Catherine's voice slowed, and she spoke about the obligation to truly see people who feel unseen and forgotten, something crossed William's face that cameras caught without commentary. Anyone who has watched him speak about his mother over the years recognized what it was. Outside that evening, people gathered near Diana's memorial sites. Not organized, not orchestrated, just people who felt something they had not felt from the palace in a long time. One royal correspondent described the atmosphere as unlike anything she had witnessed around a non-ceremonial royal moment in recent memory. By morning, Britain had shifted. Commentators who had spent years choosing careful, neutral language started using words like defining and historic. Older viewers who had lived through the 1990s said they recognized something. Younger viewers who knew Diana only through cultural memory and family stories said they finally understood what the connection was about. Inside royal circles, not everyone was comfortable. Some senior figures reportedly worried about the comparisons it would resurface. Comparisons that carry old, complicated weight. But the public response was so immediate and so overwhelming that even cautious palace voices found it difficult to argue against the result. What remains unresolved is how far Catherine intends to take this. The initiative has been announced, but its long-term shape is still forming. Some insiders believe this becomes the project that defines her eventual reign more than anything that came before it. Others quietly wonder whether the resistance still present inside the institution will slow it down, the way so many of Diana's own ideas were quietly slowed down before her. That question is still sitting somewhere inside Kensington Palace, waiting for its answer. So here is what I want to ask you directly. Is Catherine, the one royal figure of her generation, truly capable of carrying Diana's legacy into the future? Or is the weight of that legacy ultimately too great for any single person to carry forward alone? Tell us what you think in the comments. And if you want to be here when the next chapter of this story unfolds, you already know what to do.